city or a town, a frown. The business of a crown, of the living that abounds, of the church and the announcements. It's doing what counts, the underground sound in a city or a town, a frown. The business of a crown, of the living that abounds, of the church and the announcements. It's doing what counts. The underground sound is the voice within, to give ear to the spirit and to flee from sin, to live for Jesus and the praise of him, by not selling out for the praise of men, to do whatever it takes, no matter what the cost, to keep pushing up the weight, carrying the cross, straight bench pressing sin, defend the word that lacks, and your best mention him, or then you gon' die. Cause the underground sound in a city or a town, the business of a crown, of the living that abounds, of the church and the announcements. It's doing what counts, the underground sound in a city or a town, the frown.
Oh, guys, I've had the weirdest day over here. So my buddy Scott Davenport, known him for like 10 years, he goes out and writes a book. Now, I don't even know if Scott Davenport can read a book, but he decides he's going to go out and write a book, write a book, allegedly. What's that mean? He got a few dollars saved up and he sent it to an editor? Okay, so he writes this book and he sends it to me and he asks me to, hey man, can you help me get the word out? It's like, Scott, that's not really what I do. I don't really get the word out. Like, I have a different audience with my relationship. I mean, I would tell, this is one of the worst books I've ever read. It's edited right. Most of the periods are where they're supposed to be. There's a lot of punctuation errors. I mean, this book is really bad. It's like remarkably bad. My mother used to play once a month. She would go and play a game called Bunko. And she would always come home, and I'd always make a deal with her and say, Mom, you got to wake me up when you get home. Just let me know that you're home. And she always would. And she used to win something called the Booby Prize. And I was too young to know what the Booby Prize was. All I know is my mom came home with a gift, and it was kind of cool. Well, when I got older, I found out that the Booby Prize goes to whoever plays Bunko and gets last place. If you're the absolute worst player, they give you a prize as a gift. My buddy Scott Davenport wrote the Booby Prize.
All right. We're live and alive on the Underground Sound with Doug from 413 Barbell Club. How you doing, man?
Good. How are you, Scott?
Good, bro.
Appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I really like the kind of Steve Reeves theme you got going on. Are you a big fan of Steve Reeves?
Dude, let me answer that question right here. Man, I keep this book near my desk for inspiration, dude. So
Wow.
there it is, Building the Classic Physique the Natural Way, man. But yeah, big Steve Reeves fan. I find him fascinating. Obviously, he was just a superior genetic freak.
Yeah,
But it's still
absolutely.
just absolutely fascinating to watch how him and for that matter, the whole silver era trained to me. Just absolutely amazing. You big
Did
Reeves
he?
fan?
Yeah, I really like, that's what I got into, like bodybuilding, because I was kind of inspired by those older Steve Reeves. I really like Dave Draper a lot. I was always a big Dave Draper fan, and
He's an excellent writer too.
I know, he's amazing.
Amazing.
I've actually talked to him a couple times because I was trying to have him on the podcast, but he said that he gets, I don't know what it is, but he can't talk, like he'll like stutter and stuff like that. So he doesn't do any interviews or anything. He will not do them. But I also recently found out that Dave Draper is a big time Christian. I don't know if you knew that. Did you know that?
I figured that out. Actually, it was on Wednesday nights, dude. He would send out a newsletter every Wednesday night, and I was signed up for it, thankfully, for like 4 or 5 years. And occasionally he let some of that. He talked about his past, because he went through some addiction and some hard times.
Yeah.
And he talked about like God bringing him through it and his faith in Christ and stuff. It was really cool. But one night, dude, he was quiet for a while, and I think his wife had been sick. And he said, "I'll be honest, guys. I kind of got. I'm paraphrasing, but he got used to the feeling of not doing the newsletters every Wednesday night. He said it's nice taking a break, so we think this is it." And I was like, "No," because he was such an inspiration for me. Like writing, I started a blog because of it, and
Really?
yeah, yeah, he just a huge inspiration for me as well. So, but yeah, dude, he's incredible, awesome writer. But I didn't know that about him not doing interviews. I guess that's why he can't find anything.
Yeah, you won't find anything. There's like one interview online, and it's him talking about his addiction and stuff. It's
Hmm.
not a very good. It's a pretty negative interview. The only one you could really find out there.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, yeah, but it's cool to find stuff out like that. And yeah, I really like his writing. I mean, his writing's amazing, and I like how he talks about the actual experience of training. I think that's really cool how he does that.
Oh man, you read his writing, you can smell the iron, the sweat, the
Yeah,
horse mat stalls or whatever's in the gym.
yeah,
It's just you're there. It's amazing.
yeah, yeah. What I liked about Draper too. I think what inspired me so much about him is he just seemed like a guy that was athletic, really strong, loved to train. Like his lifestyle, he kind of represents the lifestyle that I wanted to live, and that's why I was like drawn to him. I was like, that's kind of what I want to be like, is like this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to that. I think a lot of the old school guys they were almost more nonchalant. Would you agree about training? Like guys today, at least like pro bodybuilders, both like IFBB and natural, it's such an obsessive thing.
Mm,
And they obsess for 16 months for a prep, and you get up on stage in a gym that has 200 people, in the natural ranks. It's just unbelievable. But like the old school guys, what they did was legendary, and they were, Arnold and Franco would go eat a pie a week before the contest. It's just I really respected that, honestly. Just they didn't take it as serious as today, but the results were definitely serious results.
yeah, whenever I got into bodybuilding when I was pretty young. I was probably, I don't know, like 15 or something. I mean, I was lifting when I was like, since I was like 11, but I got into bodybuilding when I was like 15, and just really really loved it. And it's weird because I got out of it for a long time. I got into martial arts, and I didn't do any kind of bodybuilding or anything like that. And then when I came back to it, there's all this like new language, like hypertrophy and all this stuff, and I hate it personally. I cannot stand it. I'm like, dude,
Yeah,
what are
yeah,
you talking about? Like
yeah,
hypertrophy means like bodybuilding.
yeah. Yeah, it's oh man, and you stay off of Reddit. Then I'm sure you've learned because
I've never
oh
gone on
gosh,
Reddit,
the
thankfully, man.
Reddit police will get you if you talk about old school bodybuilding. Oh no, you can't do that. This study said this, and this study said that. And I mean, I've learned my fair share of science for like personal training reasons and stuff, but I just, kudos to the people that have their doctorates and that's the path they go down. But I just choose to take you don't have to do that to build a good physique, and you don't have to do that to be a even competitive bodybuilder and a successful one at that point. I certainly enjoy less science, more inspiration.
Yeah, yeah. There's an art to it, as
Yeah.
well. Um, I think I stole your post today. One of those posts that you had of Steve Reeves, and I want to ask you because you have that book. Did he train full body workouts?
Um, Short answer, yes. And as far as I can remember, he never did anything but full body. Reg Park, for example, was known. He's famous for his 5x5 routine, but there was different levels of that 5x5 routine. He had a mass and bulk 5x5. He had his Mr. Universe prep 5x5. But then by 1951, even Reg was splitting things up. I think he was training. He would switch to 2 times a day training. Then he would switch to 3 times a day training. But Steve, the whole way through, as far as I can remember reading, he stayed full body. He's
I
a
really
huge
like
advocate
that.
for it. Yeah,
I really like that. And, it's interesting to me because there's this big theme or whatever. Like what you hear everyone say is like, oh, yeah, that's a good beginner routine. That's a good beginner routine. But you want to move on to a split routine that's more advanced. And when you think about it, if you take a step back and think about it, the reason people don't do full body routines is because it's literally too hard.
exactly.
That's why they don't do them. That is the
Exactly.
reason they don't do them. It's not because it's too easy and it's a beginner routine. It's because it's too hard.
And it is easier for a beginner. Yeah, but that doesn't, if anything, it's just crazy to me. And I don't know how familiar you are with this. I tried to do I did a contest prep last year of all years to do it. And the show ended up getting canceled and the competition was virtual, but I stuck with it. But for 90% of that prep, I trained full body just to see what would
Nice.
happen. And eventually, when we were quarantined and I was stuck, I couldn't, I had to train, 6 times a week. It was driving me nuts, because that much free time. But
Yeah.
for 90% of it, I trained full body.
Nice, man. That's been kind of my quest for, since for me, the turning point was I came across Arthur Jones stuff. So I don't know if you're into that or familiar with that, but when I came across Arthur Jones writings, I was like, this all makes perfect sense. Like, I mean, I was doing the high volume Arnold Schwarzenegger, trying to train twice a day, 6 days a week and everything. And
Yeah,
it
the
just wasn't working.
encyclopedia bodybuilding type stuff.
That's what I did. Yeah, that's where I used to get my workouts from. And
Yeah, yeah.
it just ran me into the ground. I mean, I could not
Oh, yeah, it
recover
does.
from that volume.
I don't know
But
about you, but for me, and maybe it's a bone structure thing, maybe I'm kind of an ectomorph in some ways, but I just, that much volume just wears on my joints. Like I'll take 4 steps forward maybe, but then I take 5 steps back because I have to take time away to let my tendons and ligaments heal. Um, it's just a frustrating experience. So I'm the same way. I definitely do well with a good amount of rest, and for me, full body seems to work well quite a bit. But I need to look up Arthur Jones.
oh man, Arthur Jones, like, when I started reading his stuff, the Nautilus bulletins, and you can read them online for free. There's a website, my friend actually runs it. It's www.arthurjonesexercise.com. I'll send you the link,
Okay.
and all the Nautilus bulletins are in there. And did you say so you're natural?
Yes.
It's really interesting too because he covers that, and he says, like, he's like, the only reason people use steroids is because they're grossly overtrained, and they're overtraining so much that the only way they can recover from the workouts is by using steroids. But if you train properly, you could actually get better results naturally. And he uses the example. It's really good because he uses a lot of examples of like animals and stuff. And he talks about a racehorse or like a stallion or whatever. And he's like, you will never produce a better stallion than a natural stallion. Like if you start giving them steroids, it will never improve the horse.
Hmm.
Only, the natural horse is the best. The race horse, a natural horse performs the best, but they train them properly. They don't overtrain. You would never overtrain a horse because you'd see their running go down so drastically. No one would ever do that. But for some reason, humans, they they train like ridiculous, and there's like no he uses all these comparisons. He's like, if you look at a gorilla or you look at a lion, they're pretty leisure most of the time. They rest a lot. They just lounge about. They don't do anything. And then they just like get an intense fight or something every
That's
once in a
true.
while.
That's true. And I mean, we took our oldest daughter to see Lion King, the new Lion King at theaters, and I mean, I'm sitting there, she's eating it up, and I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, those lines are pretty jacked. But
Yeah.
that's a good point. I mean, and I think the physiques today are just. I mean, I'm a bodybuilding fan. I've been to the Arnold Classic several times. it's evolved and it is what it is today, and I'm still a fan of it. But ultimately, like, I'm a way bigger fan of the silver and even golden era physiques. I just think they looked healthier and therefore better. And
Yep.
you'll just never beat a Steve Reeves or Reg Park type physique in my mind.
Yeah, the only thing that got me back into bodybuilding, honestly, was the classic physique division that they just started. Like,
Mhm.
I started seeing those guys, and I was like, this is what made me like bodybuilding. This is actually looks good, and I mean, that's something that you'd want to actually look like. I mean, I guess it's cool to see like big Ramy or whatever, but no, who would want to look like that ever?
Yeah, think about the simple daily things: getting in and out of a car, going upstairs. In the
Yeah.
event you get on an airplane, it's just, I don't know. I almost feel bad for them, and I feel bad for their families, and the possibility, God forbid, but like there's so many guys dying,
Oh yeah,
so
it's a
many
big
guys
problem.
dying, and it's I heard of another one this week that was a '90s bodybuilder died. I can't remember the name, but it's unfortunate. It's just you go to these expos and it's a health and fitness expo, but we just kind of conveniently pretend that everyone's healthy, and reality they're not.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. That's what it's supposed to be about, but exactly what you just said, it is not. I mean, when you're taking, I think insulin is probably what ruined the sport personally, because I
Yeah,
think that's what's made them so blown up. They look like balloons almost now. They're so big. Because they didn't look like that. Like when Arnold was competing and Frank Zane and Tom Platz, they didn't have that look at all. They were very defined.
yeah, they had a hard look that you don't see today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean,
I
you
think the
got
big
you.
difference is insulin and growth hormone
Yeah,
is where
yeah,
it changed. It started going in a different direction.
absolutely, absolutely. So you train full body?
I try to. That is my philosophy. I look at it that way because I look at it, and I got this from Arthur Jones. He said when you sleep at night, you don't rest just your arm, or you don't rest your legs. You rest your whole body, and when you
Mm,
recover, your whole body is recovering. It's not one muscle group and so you should train full body. But I also, it's very hard to train whole body. I got really strong. So my lifts, I got into powerlifting and my
mm,
lifts got so strong, it was really, really difficult to do full body workouts. And like when I would I tried to do like let's say I would just do squats as many as I could. And then I would do bench press, and then I would do like chin ups, and then I would do like military press, and I would want to puke by that point. I mean, I would be sick, and it would be like extremely difficult to go onto my arms and stuff like that. Um, Although
yeah,
I have successfully done full body workouts, but I kind of what I do is I try to not train 2 days consecutively, and I don't look at it as like I'm training this body part or that body part. So I'll do something. But I'm also okay with not hitting the whole body. And I sometimes will train multiple days in a row just because if I feel like I'm recovered enough. Um, but I like to be fully recovered before I train again. That's kind of like my philosophy, I guess you would say.
yeah. I agree. I've never liked the feeling of training a sore muscle.
No.
Um, I guess technically you can as long as you're not risking injury, like especially on a compound lift like a squat or deadlift. But I'm just personally not a fan of it. I like to be recovered as well. I'll kind of personally switch back and forth. Um, one thing when you get older, I'm 36. I don't know how
Oh,
old
me
you
too.
are. Are you really? That's
Yeah.
funny. I mean,
For
I've
two
I've
weeks.
noticed. That's
I'm
awesome.
37 in about 2 weeks. So
Well, I've noticed like even the past couple years, like if I don't warm up, little things happen, And so the one knock I have on full body training at my age, and I guess the reason I don't do it 100% of the time anymore is it is so hard to warm up each part of the body and then train it. And
Yes. Yeah.
I'm a big. I've always done at least 2 warm up sets,
Yeah.
and then I do my work sets, and that's kind of how I count volume is hard working sets per week.
How many work sets do you do?
Um, typically I will start at like 8 or 9, like,
Wow.
and then I'm sorry, over the course of a week, like for
Oh, okay.
chest, I'll have
Okay.
like okay,
I was
I'll
like,
do
dang, 8 or 9 work sets of
no,
squats.
gosh,
That's a
no.
lot.
But I found for me the sweet spot when I work up and I get to where I'm hitting 13, 14, 15, or 16 sets per body part per week. That's a good happy medium. I'm making progress, but I'm not doing damage to my joints and tendons. Uh, Going back to Steve Reeves, when he trained for the universe, when he trained full body, he would do 9 sets per body part, um, which is crazy. So he was doing 27 sets per body part per week, which isn't too much, but per week. But when you think about in one session, you're going to do 9 sets for shoulders, 9 sets for chest, 9 sets for back. Just a 3-hour marathon workout is crazy, amazing. But most guys wouldn't have the guts to do it today.
Well, I definitely am a big believer in genetics being a huge role in that, because
Yeah.
I think if you have more of those endurance muscle fibers, uh, you can train with a higher volume and it works for you. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger, obviously, he had such a high tolerance for training because he trained extremely high volume, and responded great. There was a guy when I was 20 years old. I used to work at this gym, and the best built guy I've ever seen in my life. And I swear, like, this is gonna seem unbelievable. He looked like Steve Reeves. He looked like Steve Reeves when he was in the Hercules movies, like big. I mean, he was big and I mean, incredible looking. Like the guy looked unbelievable. His name was John Lewis. And this guy just worked at a mill. He was just a mill worker. And I would see him come in every single day, and and every day he would train his entire body really, really hard. And he would do like this. He would do like a set of bench press, and then he would do a set of shoulder presses. Then he'd do another set of bench press. He'd do a set of curls, a set of bench press. He would do bench press in between everything, and he would do his whole entire body, legs and everything. And he would
Wow.
do it. And he would be benching 400
Oh my
pounds
gosh.
every day,
So
every day of the week.
he's staggering everything,
He would
basically.
stagger everything. Yeah.
Hmm.
He would do his whole body. And he had incredible results. Unbelievable, and but I believe it was his genetics, because I could not do that. I mean, if I do a hard chest workout, I can't do it for 4 days.
Oh yeah, same. It's
There's no way. I would go in, I would tear something if I trained the next day. I would rip my pec.
yeah, I agree. I feel the same way, and I think I think Steve Reeves. I've heard people knock his program because of genetics, and they
Yeah.
just say what he did worked just because of genetics. But I've seen too many people, and even myself, seen good results from training full body. I mean, it works. And at the end of the day, we all know, aside from genetics, so much of this is going to come down to what we put in our body. And if we drink enough fluid and have a good, get electrolytes, and we eat what we need to eat in order to grow. And that's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So many people aren't willing to I mean, I've learned this from personal training, they want you to push them and crush them in their hour at the gym, and then they're going to say see you bye, and just they want to be off the hook the rest of the time. And it's it kind of stinks to come to this reality, but so much of it comes down to nutrition and genetics.
Yeah. It's interesting because when I was into bodybuilding when I was a lot younger, there was nothing good to eat. I mean, it was like horrible. I remember eating just plain chicken and stuff. And I think I would use this stuff called Mrs. Dash. And
Salt
and it was
food.
sucked, right? And
Yeah,
now I eat this stuff called have you ever heard of G Hughes barbecue sauce?
I have some in my refrigerator. Yep.
Dude, it's so much better.
It's
and
good.
and you think about it, and it's like in 50 years or whatever, you're gonna be able to eat whatever you want and get shredded. I mean,
Yeah.
for sure. They're gonna figure out something, and it's like you're gonna be eating chocolate cake, and it's gonna be just like a
Well,
chicken breast.
I had a key lime pie last week. That was amazing. Shout out to Protein Snack Shop. Have you ever heard of Protein Snack Shop?
No, I haven't.
Are you in Tennessee?
Nope, I'm in Medford, Oregon.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
don't know why I thought you were in Tennessee, brother. Well, here in Tennessee, there's a brand, and
You're
they're trying to
where in
branch out.
Tennessee are you?
Northeast Tennessee, near Bristol and Johnson City. I'm in a town called Elizabethton.
Okay, I actually, so I do a lot of my podcasts with Pete Rubish. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I've seen him deadlift in person. Yes.
Oh, in person. Okay, yeah, and he's
Yeah.
in Tennessee.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, real quick, at my current gym. It used to be called Evolution Sports Gym. They had something called Night of the Living Deadlift in October every year, and I saw Pete deadlift. It was something really cool to see in person. Yeah.
Yeah, Pete's a real Christian guy too. He's really, really great guy, man.
I've heard
Awesome.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
he's
awesome.
he's a super, like, I don't know if it's a Tennessee thing, but he's just like a very wholesome guy. Like just this genuine good person, and I'm like, dude, you're awesome, man. Like, why are
Yeah.
you like this?
Yeah. It's good to see guys like that. It's so many people in the fitness industry aren't that way. You get a lot of cockiness, but yeah, it's always good to meet someone that's humble. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, check out Protein Snack Shop. They have all kinds of little packaged little dessert bars. And I mean, not to knock Quest Nutrition, that was a huge step up for me in protein bars. I
I don't
think.
like Quest, man.
Well, now I'm at a point. The first time I had them, I was dieting on a contest prep, so of course it tasted amazing. But now, if I'm not dieting, it's not
Yeah.
that great. But Protein Snack Shop's really good.
Have you ever had pure protein bars?
No, I've seen them, but I never had one.
I like those personally. That's what I usually eat. I like them. When you get burned out on the protein shakes, because sometimes it gets old.
Yeah, I personally don't use whey much anymore at all.
Oh, really?
No, I'm I'll be honest. I've got really high cholesterol. It's a genetic thing, just
Oh.
like stupid high. And I've really modified. Not that protein powder was a reason for it, but I eat a lot more naturally, I guess, than I used to eat. Avoid a lot of packaged things in general, and eating less carbs than I used to eat. Better quality fats, and more select with my carbs, and seeing what that does for my cholesterol levels right now. But because it really doesn't make sense how high my cholesterol was. I forget the number, but my doctor just looked at me and goes, "Dude, your cholesterol is stupid." I mean, I can't believe it. And I said,
Wow, that sucks.
yeah, it's bizarre, but just genetic, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens. I mean, a lot of the deaths too in bodybuilding, they seem to be connected to something genetic, but when you combine it with doing what these guys are doing, I know that I think Dallas McCarver had some kind of heart condition, and then he bulked up to 350 pounds,
Yeah, yeah,
killed him.
yeah. That that was really strange. Um,
He was in Tennessee too, wasn't he?
he is, yeah, well, he was, and I'd seen him compete at the Arnold Classic shortly before his death, and like he was right up in there in the top two, and you just assume you're going to see the guy next year. You're like, yeah, he's from Tennessee, and didn't happen.
Yeah, I thought that guy was going to become Mr. Olympia eventually. That's what I thought. He was really strong and just massive.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he was definitely one of the big. He stood out on stage. We'll put it that way. Yeah.
I think Pete told me that he was the biggest guy he'd ever seen because he trained in the same gym as him.
Oh,
He
did he?
was like, that guy was massive. Yeah, he said he was just the biggest dude. But Pete beat him in the deadlift.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, it's yeah, not a lot of bodybuilders deadlift anyway. I've noticed. It's the it's one thing I like about Chris Bumstead. I will say, he's not afraid to stack up some plates.
Man, watching him squat, man, he's so strong in the squat. It's like
He is.
amazing. He
He is.
squats 500 like it's nothing.
Oh yeah, and I've got a video as screen recording. It's one of his very very early um, YouTube videos. He was deadlifting, and I mean he had just I always watched that before I deadlift, just because I'm like, he makes all those plates look so easy. Let's go do this. You know,
Yeah.
it's like I love watching it.
Yeah, yeah. That kind of stuff is really inspiring when it just looks easy. You're like, it is
Yeah,
easy.
yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't work out that way though.
I wish it did, but at least it helps going in.
Especially on the squats and the deadlift. Those are the two I feel like you really got to learn your body and your recovery and your I feel like your central nervous system for me the deadlift taxes me more than anything.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Um, and I've had to d- modify my leg approach in the past year. I just squats don't work out for me too well, and I was encouraged to kind of stop um, trying to squat heavy just because it was back strain after back strain. No matter how many times I videoed myself and paid attention to form, I mean, I was going above and beyond, consulting with people. I was determined to get my squat up, and it just seemed like every time I'd, attempt even close to 300, I would have a back strain. And it comes down to I have such long femurs,
Yeah.
which is great for deadlifting, but I'd take a few steps forward and take 4 steps back every time I have a back strain. So, um, it's another reason I'm a fan of the old school Steve Reeves and kind of the Vince Garanda, incorporate some of his leg training methods, and that's seemed to work for me. At least I can keep momentum that way, and that allows me to still deadlift and things without a hurt back. I would love nothing more. I've got I don't know if you can see, I've got a squat rack here behind me.
Yeah.
I'd love nothing more just to be able to train legs by loading up the bar and squatting. But it's just not in the cards for me. I've pretty well accepted. But that's what I signed up for a powerlifting meet once actually in 2015, and primarily I was excited about deadlifting, but then I had a low back strain about 4 weeks before the competition, and I had to pull out. But you know, everyone's got their strengths and weaknesses. It's just part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that stuff, you just got to figure out over time. And I think volume has a big part to do with that. Sometimes you got to cut it back. Or for me, it's funny, just getting older. I've gotten so much better just because when I was younger, like if I felt a tweak in my back or something, I would just keep going. I would
Yeah.
just I would just
Yes.
wreck myself. And now it's like I feel it and I'm like, I'm done. And
Yeah.
that's a game changer for me. It's just knowing those simple things like that, like when to call it, like, all right, this ain't happening today. I gotta let it go. And being okay with that, whereas when I was younger, I was not okay with that. I was like, I'm gonna finish this set like no matter what, do or
Hey,
die.
I've been there. It's probably some of my problems.
Yeah, yeah, you gotta, you know, figure that stuff out, man. And cutting back volume for me has really made a huge difference, you know, huge. So what's your story, man? Like what's the beginning up until, where you're at now with the 413 Barbell Club? How'd
uh,
you get there?
well, I'm a teacher, and
Oh, really? What do you teach?
fourth grade currently.
Oh, cool,
Majority of my
man.
teaching career was in sixth grade. But I started in first. I got hired on in 2010. Sorry, 2010. It was a tough year, economically in the area. I think they hired like 2 positions in the whole county. And so in March they called me and said, "Hey, we're going to have a first grade position." So I taught first grade the rest of the year, and my principal was like, really like what you did with them. My son's going to be in 6th grade. I'd like you to be his teacher." And
Wow.
so I got to stick around. But I was coaching basketball, junior high basketball, loved it, but it was insane how much time I was spending away from home. And you never coach for money, don't get me wrong. But with my wife and I talking about wanting to start a family, I didn't want to live that life where like, some of the coaches were telling me like, "Yeah, I brought the whole team by after I gained and not my son or daughter was born." It's like I don't
Yeah.
want that. Um, and I got to a point too. I had this drive just to like take care of the family. Like I was a teacher. You don't get into teaching for the money, and I just had this drive to like start something. And it started also having people tell me, "Man, what are you doing? You're getting good results. I'll pay you for a program." And so it all kind of came together at the same time. And that's when I started 413 Barbell Club.
Was that recently?
That was in 2015, actually,
Okay.
about mid 2015. And I started the process, started the blog, I started the process of becoming a
Where's
certified.
your blog at?
It's on my website. And I'll be on it. Used to my blog, I emailed an article to everyone each week. And since then, what I've done is I actually, instead of emailing, I just started a free Facebook group. So if you go to my website, 413barbellclub.com, there's a place where you can click join the free club, and it take you to my Facebook page. And that's where I post some of my special writing content now. But if you go to my website, there is a blog section. I think I have 3 or 4 of my favorite blogs that I've written on there. But anyway, I think I've got my first client in 2016. And, personal training, it can be difficult getting started and doing it on the side as well. Like I wasn't at the gym a lot to like, meet and greet people, and that's how you get clients. And so it was a slow start, but I was content. I was doing it part time. And then uh, later in 2016, when I was contest prepping, I was just laser focused on the show, and I was like, I'm not going to take any more clients. But I had people asking still. I said, "I tell you what if I train you like once a month, and we'll do the rest online?"
Yeah.
And so I kind of had this organic building of online training. I know everyone says DM me for training plans or advice these days, but it's kind of cool. I had it happen organically, and ever since then, it just slowly built on from there. And in 2019, I trained my first 2 bodybuilders or physique athletes, and so that was exciting to help them take two guys to stage. And since then, I've just been trying to slowly grow my brand, and it's still part time. But I think I like doing it part time because my real passion is reaching out to busy people like me and you that have families, and helping them see that you can have a full-time job, you can have a family, um, you can have kids, you can have all these things going on in your life. I play guitar at my church too. There's all these things. We wear a lot of hats, but you can still do things to fit fitness into your life and hit your fitness goals. And so I think people connect with me when they know I'm not just another like full-time online coach. Like I do this on the side, just like they're going to be doing fitness on the side as well.
Yeah, man. That's huge. And that's one of the things for me that was a game changer. Like you're talking about the obsession thing. When I switched over to from high volume to more of a high intensity style, I mean, the way I train is if I don't have the time to train that day, it's not a big deal. I don't do it.
Hmm.
It's an extra rest day, and that's great. And training should improve your life more than be your life.
Yeah,
I
that's
totally
huge.
believe that.
It should add to it, not take away from it. I totally agree with that. Um, and I'll be it's a challenge sometimes because people come to you and they're like, "All right, I'm ready to do this. I want to make a big change. I want to, and they're so eager at first. And sometimes I feel like I'm just a wet blanket because I give them the program. And so many times, like, and it depends on the context. I get a lot of context from people like, "What have you been doing?" And a lot of time people have been doing super high volume, and then I kind of spy on their social media, see where they are, physique wise, maybe if they posted any lifts. And a lot of times, to be honest, there's not a lot of progress, not a lot of results to be shown. And so I'll program something pretty low volume, and they almost get mad at me. I had a guy in Sweden once send me like a whole line of like angry face emojis after I sent him his program. And I was like, I didn't mean to insult you. I'm saying you want to make progress, right? We're going to start here and we're going to take steps up from there. And so it's funny. I get some funny results at times, but then, you know, I convince people and get them to understand, we're going to make progress. This isn't like I'm sending you a 12-week program, see you bye. It's going to change as we progress. But it's
Yeah. So what does a full body workout look like for you?
for me personally.
Yeah, like if you were to break down the exercises and everything.
All right, for me, I will start usually. I like to stagger what I start with during the week. So if I train 3 days, one day I'm going to start pushing, another day I'll start pulling, another day I'll start with legs.
Okay.
That way, nothing gets more attention than the other, unless I'm specifically trying to bring something up. For example, I had tricep tendonitis once, and I did pushing first for a couple of training blocks just to kind of get my chest and shoulders and triceps back up to speed. But I'll normally start. If I start like on with chest, I'll start with like flat or incline bench, and then I like to kind of transition. I kind of follow the pump,
How
and then
many
I'll go.
sets will you do? Like
Oh well, oh yeah, sorry. I'll do 2 or 3 warm ups, and then I'll do at the start of a training block. I'm gonna start with like 3 sets, and I just progress from there. And when 3 gets kind of stale, I'll add 4. I'll make 4, or not add 4. I'll make it 4, and then eventually 4 will get stale, and I'll add or make it 5. And the most I've ever done, I know Steve Reeves would do 9 sets, like maybe 3 flat, 3 incline, 3 flies. Um, I've seemed to do good with like 4 of one thing and 4 of another, but 8 sets is the most I've ever done. That's a long workout, but I'll go from like flat and incline bench to like a shoulder press or upright row to a row, a good barbell row or a pull up. And while I've still got some blood in the upper body, I'll do some dips for triceps, maybe, or maybe like a straight bar push down for triceps, supersetted with something for biceps. And then we'll finish up with legs. I'll do I don't do a lot of back squats necessarily. I'll do some variation of a squat. I've got a belt squat I rig up sometimes. I love landmine squats, or I'll do the Vince Garanda style squat, or I'll do a old school hack squat with the barbell behind you. And my leg training just kind of looks a little. I just go by feel. Like it's funny, everything's very structured and calculated. What I do usually, but leg training, I just kind of go by feel, and that comes going back to Dave Draper. Reading a lot of Dave Draper, he did that. He didn't count reps or anything. So legs, I train kind of unique, but then I'll maybe finish with some stiff leg deadlifts, go to calves and abs, and that would be a full body workout. Then another day, I'd start with legs, go through a similar uh, exercise selection, and another day, I'd start with back and go through a similar exercise selection. I keep it really basic.
Do you always hit everything, or sometimes do you skip things?
Um, I I will a lot of times switch up to an upper lower and train 4 days a week at that point. I do that. I like upper lowers if I'm training in the mornings. I don't know what time you like to train. For me, it ends up either being about 5 in the morning
Wow.
or maybe like there's a 6:30 to 7:30 in the evening, or I'll train like really late, like 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. Which for me, that's I don't know, it seems really late to train. I guess it's not that late in the grand scheme of things, but um, if I'm training in the mornings with we've had to be at school at 7 o'clock this year. With kids don't congregate in the gym or the cafeteria; they go straight to our classroom. So we've had to get there earlier than usual. So if I have trained in the morning, it's had to be quicker. So just for that reason, I've not done as much full body this year. I've done a lot of upper lower, and even I'll split it up. I'll go pull push legs. It's like maybe pull on Monday, push on Tuesday, legs on Thursday, and then I'll on Saturday I'll kind of either restart the cycle or sometimes on Saturday I'll hit a full body workout. It's not been my favorite way of training this year, but this year it's just called for special modifications due to scheduling and things.
Do you have any like weak body parts that are hard for you?
Yeah, so I've got really long arms and legs. It's fun. My kids, one of the kids looked at me today and said, "Mr. Odom, your legs are long." And I never noticed that. I mean, I'm 6 feet, which isn't, super tall, but it's taller than most people. And I competed in men's physique for the first time in 2016. And I noticed on stage, like, my torso looks shorter than everybody else, and my legs just looked longer. And so for me, like longer arms, like my arms, I feel like I've always been lagging, and they're really lagging right now because I had some elbow tendonitis at the end of my contest prep last year, and my triceps are always at their best when my bench press is really good, and my biceps seem to be always at their best when I'm able to do a lot of chin ups along with bicep movements, and I can do like weighted chin ups and stuff, and that's not been the case with the tendonitis. So I've arms are a struggle for me. And legs have been as well with I think even though last year I had a posing coach, what's his name? He's over in Spain. I'll think of his name in a minute. I'll give him a shout out. But I tagged him and he said, first thing he complimented me on was my vacuum. And he said, I had great quads. I was like, okay, it's good to hear that finally. But
Yeah.
quads, the quote unquote teardrop, I think from where I wasn't able to train with a good range of motion, or I didn't train with a good range of motion so many years, that hurt leg development. They're working on it. If you had all strengths, it wouldn't be any fun. It's what's fun. Try to bring up
Figuring
the
it out.
weaknesses. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I just started kind of writing some stuff down, and one of the things I wrote was, a lot of people attribute things uh, to something when that's really not what it is. Like people used to ask me all the time. They're like, "How did you get your calves so big?" Because I just have really good calves. And I would always tell them, I'd be like, well, it's because I go hiking all the time.
Yeah.
But I realize now that it wasn't the hiking. It's just really just my genetics. I just have really good calves. I don't have to do anything for them. Like, and anything I do in the gym, like my calves come so easy for me. It doesn't matter if I go heavy or I go light or what I do. I could go in the gym, put one plate on the little calf machine, pump it out 30 times, and I'm like, that was a good calf workout. I mean,
Oh
it,
man, you have a lot of
and
guys envious then, because calves are a hard body part for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think a lot of things are that way in terms of there's a lot of people, you might look at Lee Priest and go, what do you do for forearms? It's like the guy doesn't do anything for forearms. He's just born with great forearms. He just does
Yeah.
curls and his forearms are amazing. And but you might think that it's this routine that they say. They might say, oh, I do this and that and this and that, when in reality it's not that. It's just their genetics. And I
Yeah.
think you could learn a lot more from somebody who actually doesn't have good genetics, that does actually overcome that and develop themselves.
And I tell a lot of people that occasionally I'll have someone, ask me about online coaching. It's like, and they'll notice maybe I'm a Steve Reeves fan. Like, well, should I just do the Steve Reeves routine? And I'm like, if you copy Steve Reeves' exact routine, I'm not going to say you're going to get bad results, but just understand what he did. Some of his results maybe came in spite of what he did or weren't a result of what he did.
Yeah,
He just, there's a reason he's still remembered today.
yeah.
There's a reason people still use his name and talk about him, is because he just had amazing genetics.
God made him that way.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's why he got to be, Mr. Universe. Along with, I mean, I don't want to discredit his hard work, but that, the big thing, and that's why he got to be on I Love Lucy and all these movies. And yeah.
Yeah, man, that it's really interesting stuff. And that's another thing really I did get from Arthur Jones again, because back in the day everybody wanted to be like Arnold Schwarzenegger. And so Arnold said, oh, it's because I do 8 hours of training a day and I do this and that and this and that. And so you have all these people trying to do that and nobody's getting those kind of results. No one. And it's like, why? It's not because they're not doing the work. It's because they don't have the genetics. I mean, the guy just had incredible genetics.
Yeah. And that's the frustrating part about it, and that's, you have to find your path. And that in life, there's always more than one way to Rome, with the exception, I would say of, there's one way to heaven, that's through Jesus Christ. In every other aspect of life, there's more than one way. And you got to find your way in bodybuilding and powerlifting or whatever the sport is you do,
Yeah, yeah, I agree, man. That's cool to hear too, because it's really interesting about that, like being a believer, because people want to believe so much that there's many paths to the top of the mountain, and it's like,
Yeah.
I have these conversations with my daughter a lot, and I'm like, the thing is, you have to look at Jesus and say, like, do I believe or not? And Jesus isn't saying that. Jesus doesn't say that there's many paths to the top of the mountain. So who is saying that? Where is that coming from? What, you know what I mean? Like,
Unfortunately, today everywhere.
yeah,
Yeah, but you just pray and have faith. I'm constantly praying for my girls, that God will put the right person in their path, because there's just a lot of junk out there. That's for sure. A lot of junk.
yeah. I started going to a Bible study with this guy that I was working with over the summer, probably like 9-10 months ago, something like that. And it's really changed my life. And it was interesting because the beginning of the Bible study, it was like all about Jesus saying there will be many false Christs that will come in my name, and many will believe in them and follow them and be deceived. And for me, I always used to think that was like a David Copperfield type of person. I was like, oh, that's going to be like some magician,
I
performing
the same thing when I was a kid too, like in a kid, even in high school. Like, what would that look like?
Yeah, that's totally what I always thought. I was like, oh, that's going to be, for me, I thought that's going to be easy for me to not be deceived. That's going to be easy. Like, oh, you're going to see this guy performing magic tricks and everyone's going to think it's Jesus. And I'm going to know that ain't Jesus. But what this guy said was, he goes, no, actually what it is it's actually people in the churches. And what they do is, you have a preacher up there and he's preaching something that's opposite of what the Bible says. And he's preaching Jesus and he's preaching Christ, and people believe in this Christ that they've created and they follow him, but they're deceived. They're, oh, hey, you don't have to believe in Jesus. You can believe whoever you want. Like, for example, that would be something, right? Or whatever. And it really, the reason it changed my life so much is this guy running the Bible study. He said, what everybody does is they go to church and they interpret the Bible through the lens of the preacher. So the preacher's preaching something and they're interpreting the Bible through this lens of the preacher. And the guy in the Bible study, he told me, he said, you're supposed to actually interpret the preacher through the lens of the Bible. And you can look at the Bible and see what it says for yourself and examine if this guy's preaching the truth or not. And it was funny because I never thought about it that way, ever. I always went to church and I always just listened to the preacher and, received what he said. But the next time I went to church, I went to this church randomly, a friend invited me to. And for the first time ever, I'm analyzing what the preacher's saying. I'm going, is this guy preaching the truth? And this guy literally preached the entire message on why the Bible isn't true.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And everybody
Wow.
was like, hallelujah. And everybody's like totally into it. Like,
That's
praise
crazy,
the
man.
Lord and all this stuff. And I was like,
That's
man,
crazy.
I was like, this guy's not, this is the worst message I've ever heard in my life. I mean, but it could have been how I was just looking at it too.
You have to be careful, and that's a great point. You always got to put it into the fire and see, does it stand or does it burn? And when a preacher says that, that's when you got a good one. When a preacher challenges you and tells you, don't trust me, like get in there for yourself. I'm not here to spoon feed you.
Yeah.
And I'm blessed to have, my wife and I found a good church here in the area, Calvary Church. Shout out to Pastor Robbie. He's
What
as
kind
good
of
as
church?
they
Did you say
come.
Catholic church? Is that what you said? Or
Oh, sorry, it's called Calvary Church.
Calvary.
Church.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, it's non-denominational church here in Johnson City. But yeah, I mean, it's I've heard some very strange things come from a pulpit before, and I don't know. It's funny how that works, but I always tell people if it was so easy, just the Bible, every time you read it, it just smacked you upside the head, and everyone was like, "Oh, that's the right answer." It'd be easy. Like everyone would be a Christian. It wouldn't require a lick of faith, But that's the key to it. You have to have faith, and I think occasionally I even have some shade thrown at me for using Philippians 4:13. Everyone wants to accuse you of being taking things out of context, and don't get me wrong, people will take that out of context. But then I think the people that often accuse people of taking it out of context don't fully understand the context of the verse. And when you look at the original language, it means you can endure all things through Christ. I mean, it was written from inside a jail. And when I use Philippians 4:13, I'm not telling people, you're always going to win, 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 win. It's not a beast mode verse, but it means you can endure. You never have an excuse to stop. You always are going to bounce back. And it's another verse in the Bible, but God won't put more on you than you can withstand. So I'm when I started 413 Barbell Club, I was like, why is there not more faith-based fitness outlets?
Yeah.
And so I just felt inspired to start something. And at the same time, I don't like to over spiritualize fitness. And there's some people that are really poetic with it. And, if that connects to people, that's great. Personally, that doesn't connect to me too much. My message is simple. If you wake up today, that's by the grace of God, and anything you accomplish, that's through His strength. And I just hate to see people try to take the credit for it themselves, And I feel
Yeah.
like I can say all this because I didn't realize I was there, but one day I had to come to a point where I realized in the back of my head when I was training, I was in a kind of angry place in my life. I was actually had almost convinced myself that I could be better used by God because I trained and because I had discipline, you know. And it works totally the opposite way. You know, God uses you best when you're actually at your weakest point. And so that was a whole realization I had to go through, and again an inspiration for me starting this brand.
That's awesome, man. That's a cool story, and it is very bold, because I would I've struggled with that, like just being I don't know what the right word is, like overt about it or whatever, like because you don't want to be preachy, but
Yeah.
at the same time, like for me, I believe that's the only thing that really matters in life. It's like ultimately nothing else really matters. So this is very
Yeah.
important stuff, but
It's like people got mad at Tim Tebow for kneeling, but it's like
I love that guy.
he's
Yeah.
so stinking in love with God that like it's just, it's going to overflow. It's going to show. Why would that not be a part of what he does on the field, you know? And I hate to see people be that way, but and accuse him and say he shouldn't do that. But and I agree. I've played in bands throughout college and in the Christian music scene, I've seen a lot of people take different approaches, uh, kind of preaching on stage in between songs or reading scripture in between songs. And the last band I was in, we normally our front man would say something like, "We just want you to know if you're out there, uh, we appreciate you being here. We love you. God loves you. Have a good night." We just kind of snuck that in, and I just feel like we developed such a better relationship at people with our shows that way. And I've always kind of stuck to that, and with my business as well, not to be, like you said, too preachy. And like I said earlier, I don't want to over spiritualize fitness because at the end of the day, it's picking up weights and eating healthy and taking care of the body God gave you and being grateful for it. It's as simple as that. No need
Yeah.
to add to it.
Yeah. You know, another aspect of this Bible study that I've been going to, the guy running, and he pointed out to me that Jesus spoke to people like men, and he said, like, if you examine the things Jesus said, he was just very straightforward about everything. He just said how it is. It's not confusing, and it doesn't have to be interpreted, and it's not mysterious. You know what I mean? It's not like this thing that you have to like overanalyze. He would just say how it is, and that's it. And and it's like he's speaking to you as a man, and it's like you're supposed to be a man and receive that. And it really changed my life, actually, when I just started looking at it that way, like reading the scripture and taking it in as someone speaking to me like a man, like. And it changed my life when I actually read what it said, because I actually was like, one of my things where I probably was like a false I was like a false teacher is I used to always say, like, man, these apostles were like hard men, right? And they're like fishermen and stuff. So I was like, they probably drank all the time and cussed all the time. And I used to do that, I used
Mhm.
to, and it was my excuse, it was my excuse because I was like, these guys were like me,
Mhm.
I'm like one of the apostles, these guys are rough dudes. But then when I started reading the word, it says like drunkards shall not inherit the kingdom of heaven, and and don't use words like don't joke around inappropriately. It says that. And when I read that
Yeah.
and read what it said and received it like a man speaking to a man, I was like, all right, I can't I, I can't live like that.
Yeah.
I have to
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah. Yeah, I respect that. I mean, it's difficult. I've had some people, say some things to me similar, justify things. And I always tell
Mm-hmm.
people, just stop thinking like, is it okay if I do this? Is it okay if I do that? Like, what can you do to strengthen your relationship with Christ? Start thinking like, is that going to take me closer to God or farther away? And something I've tried to challenge myself with in the past years, just to always like be moving, always be moving forward, always be progressing and in different aspects of life. And of course, faith is a huge aspect of that. And just instead of playing the game, what can I get away with? Play the game of, how can I strengthen my relationship with Christ and do more for his kingdom while I have the chance.
Absolutely, man. I mean, yeah, that's what I've been working on is like, because it teaches you how you're supposed to live, how you're supposed to conduct yourself. And for me, that's like you're saying, moving forward, uh, that's what I've been trying to do, in particularly with my family, because, like it says, like husbands love your wives, right? And it's like, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, it tells you what love is. And it can be tough when you examine that and you go, love is patient, love is kind, love is, you know, holds no record of wrongs and stuff. And then you examine yourself and go like, am I doing those things? The scripture could straight up tell you like, okay, you say you love your wife, but you don't, because if you're not doing these things, you're not loving your wife. And that's hard. I think it's hard for people to face those things too, because I know
It
for
is.
me, like when I was drinking and stuff, that was really, really hard for me because I had to look at myself and go like, I'm wrong. I'm just wrong. It's wrong what I'm doing and I got to stop. And it's like, for a while, you have to go through that period where you're like, I'm kind of like a scumbag, a failure
I
and
mean,
stuff like that.
but every single person, is going to have, one and probably more, of myself, like of those moments where it's just like, shoot, I got a little carried away. I'm not as holy as I think I am.
Yeah.
And like you said, you got to man up and choose this day who you're going to serve. And but yeah, that's a cool story though. I like that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's interesting because you look for God, and I've had some really amazing experiences. I got saved when I was 15 and had this incredible experience with God and everything. And you kind of like want those things, and you almost can get attracted to that. And for me, it's become way more powerful. Like it's little things, and it's like, oh, I have to actually just read what the word says and actually do it and let it become active in my life. And that's this huge thing for me. It's become this huge thing for me to try to live by what it says, how to live.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great, man. It's the best part of my life, honestly. And having a family is the best part of my life. But and at the same time, I love bodybuilding. I love this stuff. It's amazing. But it doing all this too, like it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work if you're gonna
It is.
learn about it and especially training people. For me, I got to the point where I literally was like, I don't want to personally train people because I don't have the time. I want to train myself, and I have a
Yeah,
full-time job too. So I don't have time to be personally training people. And that kind of veered me towards the online coaching stuff too. Which is what I do for myself too. That's actually how I became friends with Pete Rubish. I hired him to be my coach,
oh
and
really?
he coached me in powerlifting, and he's great, man. I talk to him like every
Yeah,
single day I'd be talking to him, and he's really good about getting back to you. He's really good about, you can tell that he kind of pushes everything out and he just focuses on his work.
yeah,
That's the kind of guy he is. He's not wasting time doing a bunch of stuff. He's dealing with his clients
yeah,
and
that's
really
and it's good
focused.
good when you get the communication.
Mhm.
I remember I was doing a show in 2017, and there's a guy backstage. It was my second show. I could tell it was his first show. He was so nervous.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna talk to him. And we we talked and became buds, and I was asking, did you use a coach and stuff? He goes, yeah, I haven't heard from him in a week though. I was like, whoa, it's like it's show day. You haven't heard from your coach? He's like, no, man, I'm waiting on a text. He's like, I just looked up online. And he had like a whole like a grocery bag of like Pop Tarts and Reese cups and stuff. He's like, I just heard people say I'll carb up with this right before the show because he hadn't heard from his coach yet.
Oh
And
man.
yeah, so I just when I hear coaches that are communicating, I'm like, oh yeah, that's how you know it's a good one. The communication, got to keep that stream of communication. Um, I'm curious when you talked about being into bodybuilding, but also into powerlifting. Have you competed in bodybuilding before?
So I'm 36, and when I was 19, I did the teenage Mr. San Jose because I'm from California originally,
Okay.
and dieted for 4 months. I mean, did it to the fullest. I did 2 hours of cardio a day for 4 months, ate six, I think I ate 8 meals a day. It was ridiculous. This guy did my diet. He was Mr. San Jose, and he owned a Max Muscle store in town.
Okay.
And I got in great shape, looked really good. And I went to the prejudging, and I was, like I said, like I got into bodybuilding through like books, and in my room and stuff, and like in my own little world. And I did a lot of training at home. And so I had this idea in my head that bodybuilding was like Dave Draper and Frank Zane and Arnold Schwarzenegger and all this stuff. And I went to this bodybuilding competition, and I saw these bodybuilders backstage, all of them, and they just looked awful to me. I mean, they were just like standing there like this, and they looked like just stiff, and they looked like, they didn't look like athletes. They looked like all these big freaky body parts just like stuck together,
Yeah.
And God's honest truth, because it doesn't sound that way. It sounds like a worse scenario. But I went to prejudging. I didn't even go back to the night show. I was like, I'm not going to do this. Like,
Oh.
I knew, I was like, you could just tell that they're all on steroids and freaking just looking, they didn't look good, man. Their tans looked really horrible to me. Just everything about it was like, this is not what I want to do. And so I decided right then, I was like, I'm not going to be a bodybuilder. And instead, I became a personal trainer, which was really cool because I got my certification. There was a certification in San Francisco, and I went to it, and the guy teaching it was Tom Platz. So I got to get certified, personally trained by Tom Platz for 3 days. Yeah, that was amazing. He was really cool, man. And yeah, I went into that. But then I was a personal trainer. And I started out in some corporate gyms, and I didn't like it. It felt like a sales job. I felt like a car salesman. And I was like, I don't want to do this. Then I ended up moving to this really small town, and I just kind of ran a gym. So I opened this gym, I did the front desk, and then I would do all of the personal training for people when they signed up. They got 2 personal training workouts. And then I was a personal trainer on top of that. But then it just didn't seem like a career. So I got out of that and fell away from it all, really, for a long time. I didn't even really train for like 8 years. And
really?
Then kind of I competed in strongman, and I competed in powerlifting. And and then I got inspired by classic physique, and I was like, that's what I like right there. That's what I want to do. And I'm actually preparing for my first actual bodybuilding competition right now that I'm going to do. Yeah.
So are you dieting now?
Yep. I've been dieting for, I think I've been dieting for like 10 weeks now.
Okay. What show are you doing?
It's just a local show here in Oregon. It's called the Pacific Coast Bodybuilding Championships.
Which federation is it?
NPC.
NPC? That'll
Yep.
be good. That'll be good. We have East Tennessee surprisingly we have quite a few options. We've got the Chattanooga does a couple shows a year. They've got the Battle at the River. Mako Hearn guest posed there last time we had it. We didn't have it in 2020. I had a guy competing there. So
Fake natty, bro. That guy is not
I
natural.
wasn't going to say it.
It really
I
bothers
wasn't
me,
going.
man. I'm like, dude,
Oh
there's no
yeah.
way, man.
So many people actually got up out of their seat and left. And I was one of them. I was making a phone call, but I was like, I'm gonna make a phone call while Mako Train comes up. And
Yeah,
he actually came into the back of the lobby and was like, "What are you guys doing? Why'd you go back here?" He was
he
just kind of
did.
laughing about it. Yeah. Then he went back to the stage, but I don't know. We got the Knox Classic as well. We've got NPC has quite a few shows around here. Um, I'd like to see more of the natural federations down here, but I don't know. Then again, natural bodybuilding. Um, I'm really wanting to see them change the way they judge classic physique, dude, because I don't see the point of having classic physique if you're going to reward the same thing you reward in open bodybuilding, just different trunks. Like I want to see the in natural bodybuilding at least. I want to see the classic physiques look like the original natural bodybuilding did. And I had a judge tell me for my online competition last year, like you're not this, you're not that. I was like, I could have been leaner. I took like a month off at first with quarantine, but I was aiming for silver era, not Chris Bumstead. You know what I mean? As far as
Yeah, Chris
conditioning,
Bumstead is
I mean,
jacked.
why would a natural competitor try to look like the IFBB Classic Mr. Olympia? I don't know. To me, it just
You
try to
can't,
look
dude.
like the natural, the best who's ever done it naturally. That should be the standard. Why is that not common sense? So I don't know. I'm personally like if I compete, it's going to be way down the road. Um, I'm just taking time to let my body heal right now, and um,
How many competitions have you done?
I'll say 2.5. I've done two, and I've done it. My first show. It's a funny story. I prepped for it in a hurricane. It was a natural show. A hurricane pushed it out, so they postponed it. But it was postponed. My wife was pregnant, which looking back, that was I didn't know like
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
everything worked. Like I didn't know how early a baby could come. That was a mistake even doing that. But um, they pushed it to where the due date was. I was like, okay, I can't do that show. And I told my coach, I'll just do a photo shoot. He's cool. He said, no, just do this NPC show next week. So I did that in 2016. I surprised myself. I did better than I thought I would. And then in 2017, I wasn't going to compete. And my wife said, train for this half marathon with me.
Hmm.
I was like, I don't know. I'm wanting to bulk, do a show in a few years. And around that time, the ANBF, American Natural Bodybuilding Federation, announced 2017 would be the first year of classic physique. I said, okay, I want to do this, and I'm going to be doing cardio with my wife anyway. Perfect, it'll work out. I'll do another show. Looking in hindsight, that was a bad idea because I wasn't even fully recovered from competing in 2016. So I was just kind of flat, and it just wasn't a good showing on my part. But then this past year, I started prep January 1st or 2020. I started prep January 1st. And then, of course, in March, shutdown started happening. And by the end of March, they had canceled the show. So, yeah, I went straight into maintenance for a few weeks. Then they said in a month, we're having a online competition. So then I went right back in the prep mode and did the online show.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
we're here in the mountains. And I always loved the old school, like silver era, like muscle builder magazines, and they were outdoors. And like even the pumping iron scene, when my favorite is when Arnold's on the mountain, and the
Yeah.
sun's behind him. So I did my routine on the top of Roan Mountain here in East Tennessee. It's one of the highest spots in the region. And so it turned out the scenery turned out good, and
Yeah,
my
I saw
physique.
those pictures actually. I saw those.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, those are
It
cool.
was okay. My physique. I would have liked my conditioning to been a little better, but it was just with the time I had, I was pleased with what I did.
That's awesome, man. Like, what got you into the whole like competing and stuff like that? Like, how did you get drawn into it?
I wish I would have been drawn in sooner, to be honest, and I would have learned better practices sooner. I spent so long training like a madman, and I didn't know why I was training. I would have been training with purpose sooner,
Mm.
but I honestly, this is a story for a lot of people. I don't know how I didn't see pumping iron for the first time until 2012 or 13. I had a really bad tendonitis injury. I had medial epicondylitis, golf elbow. And so
You ever use elbow sleeves?
I did, but dude, at that point I'd been too stubborn.
Mm.
It was severe. And so I had to take a lot of time off. And I was doing banded stuff just to get blood moving to it would feel good, but weights would make it worse. And then I used one of the sleeves where it like put pressure on your forearm.
That stuff
And once
helps
I
a
was
lot.
healed, it did help at that point.
That saved my life, man. In
But
this
like,
stuff.
during that time, that's when I discovered pumping iron when I had this time away from the gym. I was like,
Wow.
I got to try to compete at some point. So I started putting on the mass and I was up to 220 pounds in 2015. And of course, a lot of that was fat. I was on a pretty good seafood diet. But
Yeah.
when I stepped on stage in 2016 for my first show, I was 163 pounds.
Wow.
So I got pretty stinking lean. I'm
Yeah.
not really a fan of that look, but I was
Being
like,
that small.
yeah, just being that lean. And I need more muscle mass to get that. I think if you're going to get shredded, there's a certain amount of muscle mass you need, and I think the bigger you are, the better you'll look shredded. Um, but even like silver era guys, it was like this happy medium. They were big but not too big, and if they would have got shredded, it just wouldn't have been a good healthy look. I don't think.
I always
Um,
liked Arnold's look a little out of shape, you know?
yeah, yeah,
Like when he was in that Hercules in New York movie, that to me
yeah,
is like the ultimate. I'm like, man, that looks good.
yeah,
He's not like shredded, but he's just big.
yeah. You mentioned Steve Reeves and Hercules earlier. Like
Yeah,
he would
right
take
there.
a lot of time off, from training, and even like some of the pictures you can tell he probably wasn't training then a lot, and I just think it's a good look.
Yeah. So what's your goals for the future? You're going to compete. You're going to take a while off, though, you said?
Yeah, at this point, I know I was 168 last year in my competition shape. I know what my body looks like in the 160s lean. So I want to get to a point personally where I have, because injuries have kept me from, I feel like, reaching my potential, and I still have time to do it. And so I'm going to try to add more mass and do so in a healthiest possible way. And I don't really have a deadline. It's just once I like where I'm at, I'll start to cut and do a show, and I'll pick the show based on like the timeline and when it's convenient for myself and my family and for life, to be honest. And we'll go from there. As far as business, I'm just continuing to train people and help people fit fitness into their busy lives, while also I'm working with more and more bodybuilders, so that's fun. Helping people get on stage and learn to balance, life and bodybuilding, and ultimately reminding people it's not all about the trophy. People forget who win. It's it's funny how like bodybuilding doesn't really get you anywhere. It's got to be more for yourself. It's got to be something you do for personal growth. Because with the exception of Arnold and a few other rare people, it just doesn't get the fame and everything that people, think it gets you.
Yeah, man. I was basically since my competition when I was 19, I've basically been on a 15-year bulk since then.
That's awesome.
And my thing was, I was like, I want to get in the best shape of my life. That's what I want to do, you know?
Yeah.
And the way I look at this is like, I'm going to do that no matter what. Just the bodybuilding competition's kind of what motivated me, where I knew like, I'm not going to cheat on my diet if I'm going to get on stage in Speedos. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not going to embarrass myself. So I'm going to get in my best shape. But if I go there and I get last place, but I'm in my best shape, then I still won, you know? I mean, that's what I want to do. I want to get in my best shape. That's really ultimately what it's all about. If I do that, it's success.
That's the mentality you got to have. Because if you go in expecting to win, you never know. You know, you could have a guy like yourself that's been, bulking for 15 years. He's a solid piece of muscle, and you shred down, and turns out he has great shape too. There's not much you can do about that, you know. You don't know who's going to show up at these amateur shows, and you can't go in it, with your heart set on winning. And it seems a little backwards to people. Then why compete? But it's like you said, it's for, you know, no one that personally. I mean, people talk about runner's high. Is I don't know. I've never experienced runner's high. I get the opposite from running, but being on stage, man, what a feeling. My first show, dad, my dad was like, "Why are you were grinning awful big?" And I said, well, first of all, in men's physique, you don't get to pick your music. So right when I walked out, dude, Turn Down for What came on. I was like, good grief. And so like that made me laugh. But then, you're just so happy, like months and months of training and dieting for that moment. It's just a great feeling. Um, really special.
Yeah, one thing I would definitely recommend is don't bulk up too much, man. I got
Yeah.
up to when I was powerlifting, I got up to 276. That's the
Oh,
biggest
wow.
I got up. And I've been dieting now for, I mean, at first I started just eating clean foods, and that kind of dropped me down to 250. And then I've been dieting hard for 10 weeks now, and I'm down to 225. And I'm shocked that I'm not like shredded at 225. I'm like, man, I thought I was gonna be shredded at 225. I'm probably gonna be 205 or something. I don't know what I'm gonna be. I might be less than that. I don't, but definitely I plan on in the future not bulking up so much.
This has helped me. I've quit using, I probably said bulk a second ago. I specifically make a point to not use the term bulk because
Yeah.
I associate that with, you know, eating McDonald's biscuits and
Yeah.
saying, oh, it's calories, it's gains, and
Getting jacked.
yeah. And that,
Beefcake. Yeah.
when I hit 220, I mean, I was just like, for me, that was big. And so I've switched it with the term massing. I'm adding mass. It's not going to be clean mass. I know you're going to gain some fat, but I'm trying to make it as clean as possible, as reasonably possible. Um,
You ever listen to John Meadows?
I love John Meadows.
Me too.
Yeah,
I've been listening to him a lot lately, and he said he would be 227 off season, and then he'd compete at 225. So
that's depressing.
that's what he did, though. That's because he
Yeah,
said he used to go up to like 260, and when he would cut, he would be 210.
yeah,
So the whole bulking thing, you're going to lose a lot of muscle when you cut.
yeah,
It's just
yeah.
part of it when you have to cut that much weight.
That's definitely the smartest way to do it. And I think there is value once in your life trying a good dirty bulk, just because you're going to learn how stinking hard it is to come back down that mountain. You don't want to go back up again. And I'm certainly motivated. It's made me healthier in how I eat. Um, I don't want to ever have to lose nearly 60 pounds of fat again.
Yeah, it's no fun.
No fun at all, dude. Have you ever heard of Brian Whitaker?
No.
Um, he's a natural world champion bodybuilder, and he competes at like 160, but he'll bulk up, peak off season weight like 170, and like in between shows, one of his he competes in the WNBF Worlds. In between, I don't remember if it was 3 or 4 years he took a break, but he had gained 1 pound of muscle.
Wow.
1 pound of muscle. He was, went from like I don't want to misquote him, but if it was 160, he was 161 the next year. But it's just he said I can see the huge improvement, just 1 pound of muscle. It's you got to pay attention to the little details to an extent.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it comes down to, and that's my plan from here on out. I'm planning on competing. I'm actually planning on competing a bunch of times this year, so I'm going to try to stay in really good shape, but then after that, it's going to be like refinement. I'm not going to bulk ever again.
Yeah,
I'm just not. I mean, I might gain a little weight, like you said, but nothing crazy. No way.
You'll be so glad that you do more than one show. That was my plan for 2020. Then, there was no other shows to do. But if once you get to that point, like take tons of pictures, like constantly take pictures and video, you'll be glad to have that. And doing more than one show, I highly recommend it. Because once you're there, you might as well, milk it for what it's worth. And that second show, you'll be so much more relaxed and confident. It'll just be a good experience.
Yeah, man. If you're free next month, I'm actually doing a podcast with John Meadows. If you want to co-host it with me, you're welcome to.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, I've never met him. I've seen him in person at the Arnold Classic and he wasn't like hosting a line of people to come see him, but I've always wanted to talk to him, and that would be amazing.
Yeah, man. I'll let you know. He told me to just wait until next month to hit him up and see when he can schedule it in, and I'll just he's on the East Coast too, right? I think so.
I believe he's in Ohio, actually.
Yeah, he is in Ohio. Yeah. So that'll work out, pretty good.
Sweet. I appreciate that. That'd be an honor. And I really appreciate you having me on here. It's an honor to be on here. I've actually never been interviewed on a podcast. I started my own podcast in November. I did 3 episodes, but it wasn't sustainable to keep it up. I just needed to focus on a few things and nothing else. But
yeah.
But I love podcasts. I listen to them all the time. And so it was really cool to be invited on, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, obviously when I publish this, I'll send it to you. And if you look through my podcast, I did one pretty recently with John Hansen. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
I absolutely am. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one. And he's obviously natural. I didn't know though, he actually did do steroids before for like 5 years, he said, because he was trying to turn pro. So he did like 5 years of steroids, and then he actually became natural Mr. Olympia after that. I didn't realize you could do that, but he said as long as you go off for a year, they allow you to compete in that, as long as you're off for a year.
Different federations have different rules for that. Some do 10 years. I know the WNBF does 10 years, and some do different lengths of time or something. But I mean, but I'm a big John Hansen fan. Yeah.
Yeah, he's still big, man. Like during the interview, a couple times he went like this, and his arm was like huge. I was like, dang, man, aren't you like 50?
Yeah.
And he's still big.
Yeah, I saw someone post a picture of him with him actually just today, and I was noticing, like arms still filling out those sleeves, man.
Yeah, he's great, man. And I've had it started out for me, man, now that I think about it, it's crazy because I went through so many phases with this stuff. My friend had he had a radio show when he was going to San Francisco State University. And I used to be the guy that was always like making him go to the gym with me and just like we would just like wreck our legs, you know. We would just do these crazy, like one time we did Arnold Schwarzenegger in his book. He said he would go to the woods with Franco and they'd do squats for 8 hours.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I made this guy do that with me. Like
I've always wanted to try that.
yeah, I did it. It's not, I don't recommend it, honestly. Like it just like pain and you feel like you have the flu afterwards and you can't walk for 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah, I'd say.
But he had a radio show and he wanted me on it because he said I was always the guy that would be like talking motivational stuff about, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger says to do this, or you know, and I was like really motivating to him. And so one day I brought it up to him and then he goes, "You have to have a podcast, you know?" And I was like, "No, what are you talking about?" And he's like, "You're going to have a podcast." And I was like, I didn't really want to do it. I had no interest in having a podcast, but then he was like, "I'll set it up and everything and you're going to do it." So, you know, we started the podcast out and I did mixed martial arts for a long time. That's actually what I've probably done more than anything. And so I started it out kind of as a mixed martial arts podcast, and then got into powerlifting, and then so it became a powerlifting podcast. And I've had, do you know Julius Maddox is by any chance?
I do, yeah.
He was my first guest with Pete. Me and Pete and Julius Maddox did a podcast, so that's on there. And then a bunch of powerlifters. I had Greg Panora on, Matt Winning, Dan Bell, bunch of the best powerlifters in the world. And then then when I got into bodybuilding, I was like, man, I want to have bodybuilders on, you know. So I started going after the bodybuilders. I did one of my favorite podcasts ever probably actually was I had do you remember Jean-Pierre Fuchs?
I don't think I do. What era was that?
He was in the 90s and he was like massive. I mean, he was like Dorian Yates, Nasser and somebody, one of those guys.
Okay, yeah.
Just a huge guy. You might remember this because he was doing a photo shoot and the photographer kept making him squat over and over again with like 700 pounds, and he completely just blew both his knees out. Do you remember that guy?
Okay, yeah, I've heard of that story.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes I watch like the old Arnold Classics and old Olympias. I know I've seen them.
Yeah, he was actually relieved though, he said, when that happened. He was happy because he said for him that's what I titled the podcast, "The War is Over," because he said he was in this war to be a bodybuilder, and he said at a certain point it just becomes about injecting steroids and freaking, you know, taking insulin and eating carbs, and you know, it's like he didn't like it anymore. It wasn't so much about the training. And so he said when he blew his knees out, I mean, like ripped the quads off the bone and like bad, you know, he said that he was like so happy that it's finally over.
Wow, man. That's sad that it's, you know, people feel that way about a sport that, you know, should be like a celebration of what you can do. But I'll have to look it up because I did a quick search one morning before I left for work. I couldn't find the podcast, so I need to. You can send me a link to. You send me a link to one episode. I'll listen to it. But send me a link to your channel. I'd like to check more of these out, man.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. Pete Rubish, he actually published a lot of them on his channel, but then I finally moved them all over and just started just a podcast channel. Okay. So it's kind of like new and not really out there yet, you know, it's just building up, but I created it where it's just podcast only.
Yeah. Cool, man. That's
yeah.
You're getting like really good guests on there then. Yeah.
Yeah, man. The
You're
best,
like,
you know.
Yeah. John Meadows level and all those guys. Pretty
yeah.
Cool, man.
Yeah. And you know, it's funny because I actually really enjoyed this podcast, and you know, it's funny because sometimes it's like ones you don't expect. Because I actually don't even know how I came across you, to be honest. I don't even know how. Like, maybe I just came across you one day on Instagram and was like, oh, this is a cool name or something, you know? And then one day I just said, man, I'm going to ask this guy if I think it was like Steve Reeves pictures or something. I was like, these are cool. And I just one day was like, oh, I'll just ask him if he wants to come on, and boom.
That's cool, man. Well, I'm glad you found me, and I'm glad you asked me, because this was a lot of fun. And always good to talk to a fellow believer, and always good to talk to someone who also enjoys lifting at least fairly heavy weights, man.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I know you probably don't have tons of free time because you said you couldn't do your podcast, you know, and I understand that, because I got to the same point where I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. This is like, you know, it's just too much work. And even though I really like it, and like you said, I had to cut things down, you know, I was like, I can't. But you know what actually really inspired me was John Meadows, because John Meadows said, he goes, for 5 years, I published 5 videos a day. And he's like, that's how I grew my YouTube channel. He's like, and he said for years, nobody was watching it.
Yeah.
And he was publishing 5 videos a week.
Yeah, 5 videos a week. Yeah.
And I was like, I got to do that.
That's a good rule. That's worked. My social media is almost doubled in the past like year, from posting 5 times a week. But ever since I started posting 5 times a week, so I can see how 5 uploads a week on YouTube would probably, you know,
it's work.
Similar results. Yeah.
You got to work, you know,
got to put it in.
And that's how I looked at it. I was like, I gotta just work. But if you want to, man, you can come on shows if you have the time. I'll let you know, and you could like co-host with me and stuff like that. You just seem like a good guy, so that's kind of what I look for. I like people who are believers, for one, on my team, and just good people, you know. So I'll let you know what guests I have though, and see if you're interested in all. You know, if you want to come on, if you got the time.
Awesome, man. I appreciate that. That means the world. Really, truly.
Yeah, let's do it. So, all right, brother. Well, you probably got to eat dinner or something, or your kids are probably like, Dad, what are you doing?
Hey,
I know my daughter.
Well, it's just like 9:46 here. I think my kids, I know what we put my 1-year-old down at. That sounds bad. Put her down. We laid her down to bed at 7:00, 7:15ish. And I'd say my oldest is she's 4. She, I think, went to sleep about 8. So we put them to bed nice and early. Mom and Dad.
So you gotta hit the weights then. You gotta go hit that squat rack.
Yeah, I'm recovering right now from a procedure I had last week, but I'll be back at it hopefully by next week, at least a little bit, and we'll knock the dust off that squat rack. Don't you worry.
Right on, man. Well, thanks for coming on, and I'll send you that website, the Arthur Jones one. Highly recommend it, man. Best stuff I've ever read, to be honest. That's
I'm
the best
anxious
stuff.
to check that out, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, read the Nautilus bulletins.
Okay.
And then I'll send you one of the podcasts too, so you got a link to the channel. And then this one will be uploaded probably in a couple days.
Cool,
when I get
brother.
it edited and stuff like that. So
awesome.
Sweet, brother. Well, thanks for coming on, and God bless, and have a good night, bro.
You too, Scott. Thank you, man. We'll talk soon.
All right, man.
All right,
Later.
see you, dude. All right, bye.